daughter Ayanda, Buhle Ngaba. Anna has inherited her father's large electronic and communications company, and Ayanda is a young doctor working in a hospital in Stockholm. Something that Robert has been waiting for all his life in exile has finally happened. Madiba has been released. That's legendary playwright, actor and director Dr. John Kani's acclaimed Missing, which premiered at the Baxter Theatre Centre in 2014 and is also a celebration of his life's work, which will run concurrently with the set work production Nothing But the Truth at the Artscape. Dr. Kani joins us from our Seapoint studios to tell us more about the acclaimed play Missing. Dr. Kani, thank you very much for joining us. That's a bit of an insight into Missing, but let's maybe go back and draw the inspiration to what made you put pen to paper in the first place to tell this story.
Wonderful. Good morning. Every time when I traveled abroad pre-94, I always meet the brothers and the sisters who were in exile. The only conversation we had, it was always about home. Just the word home. At that time, it was a distant sort of imagination. It was a mirage that one day things will change in South Africa and we will go home. And that is the challenge that made me very excited and decided to explore what then happens when the time is here to go home. Where? To who? Is there a family there? Is there whatever you fought for? Is it what you imagine South Africa would be like? Or will you be left out because you're not on the list of people that were called to come back home? Or did you expect to be called? And these are also the questions I examined.
It's in its context today. When initially you put pen to paper, we were living in a very different South Africa. We're now living in an era of the born frees and the millennials and questions of how they're connected to the past. The decision then, this play is done incredibly well abroad. The decision then to stage it again to a brand new eyes and ears of South Africa. What was your thoughts around that in the days leading up to the first staging?
Well, when I write, I always write for my own community, for South Africa, for my people. These are the challenges I always put myself to. Having come back from abroad, come back from Bogota, we had a successful season for the play. Then we decided we're going to do it somewhere in South Africa. Then I got the invitation to come to the Artscape, which is the first time for me since the 90s or since wherever. But the important thing that I've noticed is that young people are almost every audience I've played for in this country, over 40% of the audience. They are the ones that find the connection, that finds out how did we get from where we were to where we are. So those things are very, very important to me, especially when they ask that at the end of the performance, I stay. They remain in the auditorium to engage with me, to ask questions, to interrogate the present situation, to ask, is it what Robert, the character, expected? What was Robert's vision of a South Africa today? When he's back in South Africa, does he match that vision with what's going on? And what is the future of South Africa? Projected through the character of Ayanda. Because in my plays, I always give the baton in the play to the younger generation so we could hear their voices too.
Let's talk about that younger generation, because that's also reflected, with your years of theatre and have kind of reached the icon status in the theatre space and in our discourse space. When you bring in the actors like Susan Danford, Buhle Ngaba, when you're working with a new crop of actors, with the wealth of experience that you had, how much of control does Dr. Kani take, and how much freedom does a young actor have to interpret it in relatively this new South Africa, this 22-year-old South Africa?
Well, I truly appreciate the fact that whenever I work with actors, there is that want to work with John Kani, that appreciating that I'm working with this guy who has so much experience. And everyone I've ever worked with always wants to share with me, wants to ask me questions, wants to understand where I'm coming from, also wants to know, how did you stay on for so long? How do you manage this? The conversation I have with young actors or actors within the country is very positive, creative, and inspiring. They also inspire me by asking questions that I didn't think about, or things I do that I'm not aware actually that I'm leaving a legacy or I'm leaving some little lesson. So it is an incredible experience to see the young talent explode on stage, passionate, knowing exactly what they want. My generation, we thought perhaps if this thing doesn't work, I'll get a job. Yeah. That's why my father said, why don't you get a qualification? If acting doesn't work, you could be a teacher or a lawyer. Today's generation, this is exactly what they want. And I'm amazed sometimes when I look at the eyes of my young son, Ayanda Kani, and he is so confident, he frightens me. He has no fear that there could be no work. And even when there's no work, he takes it as a break. During my time, I freaked out when I didn't know what I was going to do next, because I knew that I had this huge responsibility to the family, to the extended family, to my community, and to my country. Never to put failure as an option in everything I do. I got to succeed because I must leave the footprints so that the next generation can see the way to go.
And those powerful words, Dr. Kani, we're going to leave it there. We've run out of time, but thank you very much for sharing some time with us. Legendary playwright, actor and director Dr. John Kani, who is making his, he's been in the Artscape before in the 90s, but he's back there for the first time in years. And he's there with a play called Missing that has just done its international tour. Came from Bogota in Colombia to some amazing success. It's running from the 9th to the 14th of May at the Artscape Theatre. Go and check out Missing. There's also another set work. It's called Nothing But the Truth that is currently running at the Baxter as well. So go and check it out. We take it out, but don't go anywhere.